All of India is counting down to 2 p.m. Sunday, and the question I'm asking on the news track is this: is the Rohit Sharma 11 of 2023 the strongest Indian team ever? The manner in which the boys in blue have dominated opponents is something which cricket fans haven't seen. So I've got with me on this show cricket experts, pundits, cricketers who've seen Indian cricket over the decades. They've covered the sport passionately and intensely, and they'll give us a sense of how this particular team compares with Indian teams in the past. Joining me, I want to welcome first cricket legend, India Today's commentator for this World Cup, Sunil Gavaskar. Mr. Gavaskar, thank you for joining us. We're all cheering for you and for the men in blue for Sunday. With us also is Amrit Mathur, has been General Manager of the BCCI, Chief Operating Officer at the Delhi Daredevils, Advisor in the Ministry of Sports. With me, one of India's best known cricket and sports journalists, Pradeep Magazine. Pradeep, welcome. Our own cricketing ustad, Nikhil Naz, all pumped up for Sunday. And last but not least, former cricketer from Mumbai, Shishir Hatangdi. So thank you all for joining us. I want to go across to Sunil Gavaskar first, because as we count down to Sunday, a lot of fans, Mr. Gavaskar, are convinced that this is the strongest Indian team ever. We haven't seen Indian teams dominate opponents in the way that this team has in the past 10 months, in the past 10 matches. You've seen so many Indian teams in the last several decades. Do you think this truly is India's strongest team ever?
Well, I mean, firstly, I don't believe in comparisons. Comparisons are futile because you're looking at different playing conditions. You're playing overseas. You're playing at home. You're looking at ball changes. In the old days there was only one ball used for 50 overs. Now there are two new balls used from either end. There is no restriction on bouncers in the earlier days. Now there is restriction on the bouncers. The equipment has changed. The boundaries have been brought in. So all those factors, make it a little different. So suffice it to say that this is probably one of India's best ever teams that we are seeing, and we as cricket followers and former cricketers are absolutely delighted to see the way they are playing.
What's changed in the past few weeks after the Asia Cup? Because before that, this team wasn't generating the kind of confidence it is at this moment. There were quite a few lackadaisical average performances. It seemed that this team didn't really have the mojo required to win the World Cup. That seems to have changed. They're now dominating opponents in the way that fans can only dream of. What do you think changed between earlier and now?
I think the Asia Cup win, which was a fantastic win, when you look at how they dealt with Pakistan, how they dealt with Sri Lanka in the finals, how they played against Afghanistan and Bangladesh, it just tells you that this team was looking to peak at the right time. And immediately after the Asia Cup was over, they had 3 matches against the Australians, and then after that to come and play in this tournament, they were ready. They were absolutely ready. Earlier on, you probably entered a tournament without having too much of match practice behind you. Now they have got so much of match practice, they're totally ready. And it's a very well-balanced team. There are guys who are at the peak of their powers. There are guys who are reaching the peak of their powers. So it is a team which is well, I wouldn't be surprised if on Sunday Rohit Sharma lifts that cup.
Fantastic. But earlier teams used to be dependent typically on that one mega star, Sunil Gavaskar, Kapil Dev, say Sachin Tendulkar. The interesting thing about this team is that you've got all the players playing particular roles and looking like they're in form. So you don't have one player carrying the burden of a billion people like Sachin used to. How do you think that's changed? Because even the likes of a Shreyas Iyer, who was not at least at the international level quite as heralded, has scored successive centuries. Except for Surya Kumar Yadav, everyone seems to have come to the party so far.
Well, Surya Kumar Yadav hasn't had too many opportunities. He comes into bat in the dying stages of the innings, so he can't really do much in that. But you're right. I think this is a team where everybody with the bat is contributing, everybody with the ball is contributing. The spoils are shared, if one might use that word, and they're shared almost equally. And that is the reason why this team seems to be such a happy team. This team, you're going to see them practice. You're going to see them warm up. While there's a sense of purpose in the warm up, there is also a sense of fun. So they're looking at this sport as, looking at all these matches as sport. as school kids, we want to play sport, and that is exactly, they look like school kids, top class school kids who are out there having fun while they're representing the country.
In the British press, in Pakistan and some other places, there's been a lot of carping that this World Cup organization is being bent to suit India's requirements, whether it's the manner in which the pitches are being changed at the last moment, the whole tournament is being organized, the scheduling of the matches, it's all done in a way ki jiski lati uski bhais. Do you think that there is a disproportionate home advantage that India is exercising because of its financial muscle in the governance of global cricket?
Baseless, absolutely baseless allegation. This is what is called sour grapes. Your teams haven't done well, and therefore you are now trying to point a finger. If your teams were good enough, and that is what World Cups are all about. If you're good enough to win the World Cup, you should be able to, counter everything that is thrown at you. So the Indian team is doing it. The Australian team is doing it, despite having started badly. So the top two teams are there. Whatever these critics have to say doesn't really matter. I don't think the Indian team is even bothered. I don't think most of former Indian cricketers are even concerned. I speak my mind because I firmly believe that anybody who points a finger at my country deserves, a slap in the face, and that's what I'm trying to do by sometimes, on television. So that's exactly what I will do. Maybe some of the others will just shrug and ignore, but not me.
Let's spend a moment on our opponents, the Aussies. They seemed quite down and out when this tournament started. After that, they've recovered quite convincingly. They had a tight finish against the South Africans. How do you rate India's chances realistically against the five-time world champions who got a lot of exposure at the knockout stages and who seem to know how to come to the party on the big occasion?
Well, that will be really a great contest. I think it'll be a great finals, India versus Australia, because Australia are 5 times champions. They know exactly how to play finals. They know how to deal with tough situations, as we've seen the other day against Afghanistan, where they were down, completely down and out. Glenn Maxwell played the innings of the century, one-day innings of this century, scoring a double hundred. So the Australians certainly know how to bounce back. So this is not going to be an easy game, but I do believe that the way the Indians have been playing, that they might just have a little bit of an edge. But like we all know with cricket, 1 or 2 hours can change the complexion. But I do believe that we are in for a great finals.
In the last World Cup as well, till the semi-finals, India seemed quite dominant. Later, so much was written about the 15 minutes of madness when we lost wickets in quick succession and could never really recover from there. If you were advising the team in the dressing room at this moment, what would you tell them to guard against a potential 15 minutes of madness which could wreck the chances, the luck and the mood of 1.4 billion people?
I think you've got to show just a little bit of caution when that is happening. But that is not likely to happen in India. Those conditions of 15 minutes were well suited for New Zealand's bowling attack. Conditions were overcast. There was just a hint of rain. The ball was swinging and seaming quite madly over there. And because of the fact that India had discarded its number 4 batter, hadn't picked him in the squad, it meant that there were lots of number 4 batters who were tried during that tournament. And with the kind of form that the top 3 had at that time, Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan and Virat Kohli, they were batting for most of the 50 overs. So the number 4 had to come and slam the ball around. Now suddenly in the semi-final, when India lost 3 wickets, that number 4 had no idea how to build an innings, how to repair the innings, and that's how India lost the plot.
You said at the beginning that this is a very balanced team, but if you had to look and pick one player who stands out in India's journey so far, without whose contribution we wouldn't have reached where we have, who's that one player you appreciate the most in this tournament? Who's the one person you're looking out for come Sunday?
It is because everybody's contributed so well. So it's a little bit tough to answer that question. But I'll stick my neck out and say Rohit Sharma, the captain, because he's led from the front. He's shown how to get after an attack. He's made the path easy for those coming after him. And then in tough situations, like against New Zealand in the semi-finals, when that partnership was taking place between Kane Williamson and Daryl Mitchell, the calmness that he showed was the reason why the Indian team never seemed to have panic. Their shoulders would never drop because he was around to ensure that those panic signs didn't come out at all. So for me, I think for all this performance, for the way the team had bonded together, Rohit Sharma deserves the highest credit.
Sunil Gavaskar for joining us. Thank you very much. All the best for Sunday. Thank you, sir. I want to go across to our guests now, and quite obviously, Mr. Gavaskar being Mr. Gavaskar and being a part of very significant Indian teams, didn't want to take a position on whether this is the strongest team ever. Definitely is one of the strongest, but my question is very sharp and precise. Is this the strongest team ever? So I want to start by asking Amrit Mathur first. You've seen so many teams over the decades. When you look back at specific teams, specific years, specific captains, is there a team that, according to you, comes close to how dominant and how strong this team has been?
No, clearly I think this is the best ever. I can understand Mr. Gavaskar's reasons, and they are valid, that the game has changed, difficult to compare. But this is a team of 11 top quality players, and all the top quality players playing at the peak. I think this is the one characteristic which separates this team from others. 11 players, all in top form. Suddenly when we are batting, it looks as if we got 6 Sehwags coming in, 1 to 6, and with Rohit Sharma showing the way. And there have been 10 matches. And do you even remember one failure in the Indian team? You had everybody contributing, everybody, making a mark. For instance, let me give you an example. In the New Zealand game, Mr. Gavaskar referred to this partnership between Mitchell and Williamson. At a crucial time of the game, Kuldeep Yadav came and bowled 2 very tight overs. That changed the game, and that took the game away from New Zealand. So my point is, definitely this is the strongest Indian team, dominant, efficient, and playing with a certain calm and confidence which we have not seen in any other team. Credit to Rohit Sharma, as Mr. Gavaskar said, but I would think that this is clearly the best white ball team India has had.
Pradeep Magazine, in your years covering Indian cricket, can you with confidence say that this is the strongest Indian team ever to walk out of the park?
Well, yes, the kind of cricket they played over these 10 matches, if you just isolate whatever they did before that and just look at their performance, I would say yes, it does appear to be one of the, or maybe the most invincible team I have seen. But
is that because this is in India? If this was happening, say, in South Africa or England or New Zealand, would it have been very different?
Even in Indian conditions, I don't think any Indian team has dominated the way they have. But we will have to still wait till the final. Because
what's changed? Because largely the same lot didn't seem so dominant a few months ago.
I think a lot of credit I would give it to the selectors, whoever has chosen the team, because they waited for Rahul, who was injured. People were saying, why are they doing that? He is not in form. Even if he comes back, will he be able to make runs? Suresh Iyer, they waited for him. So they had already planned their team, obviously.
Which could have gone both ways.
Which could have gone both ways, but nothing succeeds like success. I mean, one call they may regret not having taken earlier is between Shami and Siraj, because Siraj had done so well, so they couldn't drop him, and suddenly Shami, the kind of spells he has produced.
But Shami is playing now, which is fantastic.
Which he is playing because a player got injured. I would say we wait till Sunday, but I haven't seen a more dominant team in a World Cup apart from Australia or West Indies of the past, the way this.
So I'll come to that. We'll do a comparative with the West Indies team of the 70s, the early 80s, and the Australian team of the 2000s. But before that, Nikhil Naz, is this the strongest, the most dominant Indian team that you've ever seen?
If you ask me today, I'm going to say yes. But if you ask me on Monday, it will depend on the result. Because if this Indian team does not win the World Cup, we're not going to remember the team. Sure. That often happens, right? At a final, you stumble at the final hurdle, you'll forget all these dominating performances that they've had so far, and the 2 strongest team will then remain the one that won the World Cup in 1983 and in 2011. But having said that, if you compare it with the 2 Indian teams, and I agree with Mr. Gavaskar saying you can't compare different conditions from different era, but I think the best way of comparing is comparing it with your peers at that time, what you did, because conditions remain the same for every team while they were playing. In that, the closest comparison probably would be the 1983 team, because there also, Yes.
But that was hardly dominant. They
No, but
barely
I'm
made
saying
it through
the
as the
closest.
underdogs.
I still say this is the
No,
strongest.
but this is about strongest and dominant. That was
No.
hardly a dominant team.
No,
I mean, they
it
found
was.
some ways of squeezing through.
No, because I'm saying you've got to realize the difference was that West Indies was the most dominant team, right? You beat them in the opening game, you beat them in the finals, and all I say is because we remember individual performances. You mentioned that, everyone's performing. There's a Shreyas Iyer performing, KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, name it. And that was the only team that comes close, because there you had, on certain occasion, a few games, Yashpal Sharma was the star. A few games, Kapil Dev was the star. Mohinder Amanath was a star in a few games. Sandeep Patil was a star in a few games. So were the bowlers, Madan Lal sometime. Roger Binney took a couple of Man of the Match awards. So it was spread out
So Nikhil
just
Naz
like
is
that.
spicing things up. He has a different
No, I
take.
still say
Shishir
this is
Hatangadi.
the
He's saying
strongest.
83 also had multiple players in that star cast, and in the end they seem quite dominant. Do you think this is the most dominant team ever that India has fielded, the strongest Indian team?
Is that for me, Rahul?
Yes, Shishir, it is.
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, yes, we have to consider conditions. We have to consider home advantage. We have to consider opposition, strength of oppositions, all those things taken into consideration. I'd say that we've all been watching World Cups over the years. The way we've played over this period of a month, I don't think any team has dominated World Cup cricket as much as, they're pretty much invincible in the way they've played till the last game. We don't know what's going to happen on Sunday, but I'd go further in saying that this is probably the best team that has exhibited its skills in the World Cup, even if we don't win the finals. And that is just one game, because what we've displayed in terms of our batting strength, our bowling strength, our leadership.
But
and
nobody
of course,
remembers the losers, right? Nobody remembers who got the silver. They only remember
That's all right.
whether you
That's
win or
all right,
not. So
but-
I don't think they'll be considered dominant if they lose against the Aussies after beating them in the League League.
Rahul, don't look at the destination. It's also the journey that's equally important. And I think the way we've played over the last month, we deserve to look at ourselves and say, be very proud of this team. I know it's the final frontier. It's the final of a World Cup. It's a do or die situation. You get up with a different mindset. But having said that, what we've seen with these guys, right from Rohit up to the 11th man, whether it is Kuldeep and Shami, each one seems indispensable to this team. And that is something we haven't seen over the other World Cups. We've always hoped for some player to get it back into form. We've hoped for somebody to, strike form, so on and so forth. Here, I don't see anyone being out of form, and that has been the biggest advantage of this team.
Okay, so here's what we've established so far, that this is definitely seeming to be the strongest team. The seeming is only there because they haven't won the finals yet, and if they do, it'll definitely be the strongest team. So I want to come now to what can go wrong, because it's very easy to get carried away in this rah-rah spirit of, yes, the cup's home, but it's not home yet, and therefore, what can go wrong and how to guard against it. Let me start with Amrit Mathur. Amrit, your biggest fear, how to guard against the fear so we don't end up then in post-mortem discussing 15 minutes of madness again.
Listen, I think we have to remember that this is the final, is the World Cup final. We are playing at home. So it is not just a match, it's the occasion which is important and the pressure that comes with that occasion. So it is something which both teams will be worried about. Big game, so much is riding on it. So it's pressure, and the team that adjusts to that pressure better are going to win. One more point, a lot has been said about home advantage. I don't think we really have any home advantage more than anybody else, because I think Cummins said some time back that the Australians have played more white ball cricket in India than in Australia. Because of the IPL and the multiple tours, everybody knows conditions. The only advantage we'll have is a packed Narendra Modi Stadium with more than 100,000 people rooting for India. So that can be intimidating.
No, but is that an advantage, or could that potentially also be additional pressure? Because the Aussies...
I think it's an advantage because we have so much support, and it's also intimidating to the other team that, you're not only playing those 11 against you, but you have so many at the stadium, in a way against you. So ultimately it boils down to pressure and the performance on the big occasion, because there's a sense of history attached to a World Cup final. It's not just any other game. It's not even any other game of any other tournament. This is the pinnacle. And everybody knows that you are remembered for victories on occasions like this. We remember 83, We remember 2011, and hopefully, if things go right, we will remember 2023 for a very long time.
Okay, so I was at the Prime Minister's Diwali Milan at the BJP headquarters. I was told that the Prime Minister is going to be at the Narendra Modi Stadium on Sunday. Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister, has been invited as well. It will be packed to the rafters. I viewed the India-Pakistan game. It's a very exhilarating experience if you are shouting and cheering. Does this put extra pressure? Because the Aussies literally have nothing to fear. Nobody really has much expectation from them because they lost their initial matches. So do they come in then having lesser to lose? In India, the Prime Minister sitting there, 1 lakh plus people sitting there, Amit Shah and everybody else, and they're like, could the occasion get to them?
It can, but this team does so far seem to be immune to pressure the way they are
Pressure
played.
to aayega na, sir.
No, I'm saying that it does appear that, but yes, I think India has to guard against a couple of more factors. See, Amrit was the manager of the Indian team in 2003 World Cup. India were in the finals against Australia and suddenly everything crumbled.
And they look good till the finals.
They looked good and they were very confident they would do well, but pressure does strange things to people. I think what India has to be very careful is 2-3 factors. A, have they peaked a bit early? Because the kind
Do you
of
think
intensity...
they peaked early?
Oh, no, one doesn't know. One hopes that they carry on this momentum for one more game. But with the kind of intensity they have displayed, which is like, it's almost jaw-dropping at that. You don't see teams for 10 matches play with that same intensity, the same energy, as if every match they are playing is the final. So that's a possibility that whenever they come under pressure, like against New Zealand in semi-finals, there were moments when New Zealand were batting and it appeared they were fighting back and they could chase that target. India suddenly looked desperate.
Yeah.
Suddenly you saw for those 5
Catches
minutes,
fell down.
different team, not the same team which was playing in the otherwise. So they have to guard against that. And one more important factor I think is what kind of a wicket. It's a home advantage. They would obviously want a slow, low turner, like where there is no bounce. They would want that. That suits Indian conditions, but things at times go wrong. See,
What can go wrong?
Australians are a tremendously resilient team. They know, as we all know, that they know how to win. They've been there. They've won the World Cup more than any other team has. So they can fight back. They can, the same factors which India think is to their advantage, Australians can turn it around and
Nikhil, what's your number one worry?
Well, I think, law of averages tells you that you were talking about that.
Lurking somewhere in the corner.
No, as you mentioned, that bad half hour. I would say that bad half hour has already happened for India, and it happened against Australia in the first league game. They had lost their first 3 wickets for just 2 runs on the board. Your 3 batsmen in the pavilion, you set the cat amongst the pigeon.
But that time, I think Kohli was lucky a catch got dropped, right?
Yes, but I'm saying you had the bad half hour. From there, you went on to win that game. So I would
But
say...
there wasn't this kind of pressure.
Well, Rohit Sharma summed it up very well. He said every World Cup game is pressure because it's a round-robin league. Had you lost that first game, you don't know where your campaign went and you'd be struggling to qualify for the semi. So every game that you were playing was full of pressure. And I think why I don't think this team will have anything, a bad half hour or bad 1 hour is because if you look back, and I think the primary reason is the captain in Rohit Sharma. I was there when they lost that semi-final at the T20 World Cup where they underperformed in the semi-final.
They just played too slowly.
Yes, because they had that fear of failure. And I think consciously they took a decision then that you have to eliminate that. And you know what? They walked the talk since then. You often hear sportsmen talking about you've got to concentrate on the process, forget about the result, just eliminate the result of your mind. You'd often say that this is lip service. But if you look at India's performance closely in this World Cup, they've done exactly that. They've eliminated the result from their mind. They've just concentrated on the process. That's the reason why they've been able to overcome the pressure. And which is why if I'm an Indian fan, I'm not too worried for the final.
Shishir Hatangadi, what's your number one concern?
I've got 2 concerns, 2 things that have really helped us play so well. And, we can take numbers into consideration. But the opening partnership, even against New Zealand, it was actually Rohit and Shubman who sort of played freely and gave us that start. Rohit may have not got big numbers, but he was able to dominate that attack. So hopefully, the early start is important to make a stamp an impression on where you're going in this game. If you lose early wickets, which can happen in any game of cricket, it could create a sort of ramp on the motorway, and that may be difficult to handle. And the number two is if your opening bowlers don't start off well. Given that you bowled so consistently throughout the tournament, if you don't start off well, then again you're expecting that something will explode at the other end, and we might be under pressure. But it hasn't happened. We actually, if you look at this tournament, we haven't been pushed into a corner because somebody or the other has stood up, and the form has been good consistently from 1 to 11. So my worry is these two areas have to be looked at. We need a little bit of divine intervention in a big game, a little bit of luck. That will help us believe that even astrology is helping us. But at the end of the
How
day,
important is the toss, Shishir? We saw in the semi-finals India poked up a big score. What if
Very
India is
important.
batting second? Would that be terrible because there'll be that much more pressure, especially if Australia's got a big first inning score?
Crucial, very crucial, Rahul. The toss will be crucial. If the team that bats first obviously will have the advantage of putting the numbers on the board, and whatever you get, somebody will have to chase them. Yesterday we saw Australia almost make a big meal of a modest total. So this is going to be crucial. But India have never been pushed into a corner in this tournament. So that's probably because they played so well. The point is, if we are pushed in a corner, how do we react? And that's going to be interesting. Hopefully, we'll get some divine intervention, and of course, 100,000 people, just supporting Indian cricket and hoping that this team makes an impression and wins the World Cup. Can't hope for anything more.
Amrit Mathur, how important is the toss? We were lucky we batted first. If we were chasing 340, 350 odd against New Zealand under lights second, would that have been a much tougher ask, you think?
Of course. I think the Indian batting is sort of based on batting first, big score. And as Shishir said, I think the only worry is that in case you're batting first, you lose 2 wickets in the power play, then you're in trouble. Then the other players can't play with the freedom that they've played with over 10 games. So that is the worry. 2 wickets to the Australian pace bowling can happen. It happened the other day when we played them in the first game, and we were, as Nikhil said, we were 3 down for 2 runs, and then dropped catch to Virat. So if we have a bad start, then your batting doesn't play out the way it has done in 10 games. So that's a problem. That's a concern. But if we bat the way we've done, get off to a great start with Rohit leading the way, then a big total on the scoreboard has Australia in trouble.
And then the cup's coming home, of course.
Chasing won't be easy in a big game if you are chasing, say, 300 to 300 plus.
Okay, now in the last part of the show, I want to talk about who's the one player who's most important in the view of our pundits to our fortunes in Sunday. You can't duck, dance, weave. Straight question, straight answer. Who's most important in your view and why? I'll put this to Pradeep first.
That's quite a difficult.
Ek pakdo.
I mean, in a team where everyone is performing.
All this we know, all these caveats. Just one player who you think is real, like Shami in the last match, 7 wickets. Wickets at crucial times, coming in, picking the 3rd wicket at a time when they felt like they were running away with it.
I would say Bumrah's form. I mean, he's the one bowler who has.
Why didn't he bowl as well in the semis?
Well, hopefully he had this off day already, because he's one bowler not just at the beginning but even later or in the middle overs. If the rival team batsmen are doing well, he comes in and puts on the brakes. So I think Bumrah's form would be very crucial.
So for you, Bumrah is most important.
I think he's the most
Shishir
important.
Tangadi, who's most important
Rohit
for you? One player, no weaving, ducking, dancing.
Who's this for?
Shishir.
Well, give me one situation. Don't give me one player. I'll say the opening partnership.
I never said this is like a serious. I don't take cricket quite as seriously as I take election psephology and data. This is a fan-based show. One player who's most important and why.
I'm just saying, Rahul, I'm just hoping that we get a start.
This doesn't count. This doesn't count as an answer. Shishir Tangadi, this doesn't count. You want to do a more serious cricket show? Go with Nikhil. Here, pick one player.
Rohit Sharma. One player, Rohit Sharma, because he is going to set the prelude to the symphony. And that prelude is very important in the way the final goes. So the prelude to the symphony is Rohit Sharma and how he approaches the first power play. And for me, that is going to be very crucial in terms of how this game turns out. Hopefully, if we bat first, or even if we bat second, it's how he approaches. It's a prelude to the symphony. So let's hope it's a Mozart show by India.
Nicely put. Okay, so Pradeep Magazine picked Bumrah. Shishir Hatangri picking Rohit Sharma, Nikhil Naz. Your pick.
Oh, I would have gone with Rohit too because he performs a double role. One of being the enforcer, the one who starts and gives you that start. If he gives you a good start, more often than not, India will put a total in excess of 300, which more often than not is a winning total. And then he's the captain. He does the bowling changes. He's been spot on so far. So I'll go with Rohit.
Okay, so you picked Rohit as well. Now I want to go across to Amrit Mathur, but he can't pick Rohit. Rohit's been picked by two. You pick somebody else. Who's your pick?
Listen, I'll pick Virat. Okay. It's a big game, and nobody understands what to do on a big occasion better than Virat. But in addition to Virat, if I can, take this liberty, Kuldeep Yadav, because Australians are suspect against reading him. Whether it's Maxwell, Warner, the others. So he could be crucial in terms of middle overs, get you wickets and win you the game.
Okay, so we've had an interesting pick. You've got Kohli, 2 for Sharma, 1 for Bumrah. It'll be interesting to see which of these boys actually comes to the party. For the time being, Shishir Hatangri, Amrit Mathur, Nikhil Naz, and Pradeep Magazine. Thank you. My producers are telling me to give you my X Factor. Frankly, I have no clue. Okay, I have no tools to come up with who's likely to play best. I mean, let's just hope that any of the people our pundits have picked actually help us win. What's most important is winning. It doesn't matter who gets us across the finishing line as long as we end up on the winning side. So thank you for joining us. All the best for Sunday.